Hi everyone. I wanted to record a video talking about CLI automation. I'm getting a lot of questions, how do I automate this and that? And I thought I'll just condense it into one video. But before we do, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you for watching. I typically create videos around neovim, Kubernetes, Cloud Native, and other geeky stuff. If you're a subscriber, thank you so much for supporting the channel. And let's get started. So first, as a word of introduction, what is automation and what am I going to talk about? So first of all, I define automation as wrapping repeatable tasks in reusable code. The form of the code is not that important. In my case, it's a lot of bash scripting, Python, Lua, because I'm using neovim, obviously. But this can be different for everybody else. Integration would be the way how tools work together to accomplish a specific task. A good example of this for my workflow would be using Task Warrior, which I will promise I'll make a video about one day. So Task Warrior, neovim, and other command line tools integrate together to accomplish a task. So how do we achieve the integration? This is where Unix philosophy comes in. If you don't know what Unix philosophy is, real quick, this is a way how programs should be composed and how they should work. So the philosophy states that each command line program should do one thing and do it well. So we don't bloat the program with additional functionality. We rather focus on something small. A good example of this are core utils from Linux, things like copy or grep and so on. Programs should work together and be composable over something universal. In this case, a text stream. This is very important because each program is able to work with text input and produce a text output. Then we can use things like Unix pipes or other mechanism because we already know what output is going to be. And finally, each of the programs should be able to handle the text streams. All right, so this out of the way, let's talk a little bit about tools. When we talk about command line automation, if you work a lot with a terminal, then there are a certain set of tools that lend themselves very well to scripting and automating. The first, and I guess my favorite, is FZF. It's a command line fuzzy finder. It's an extremely versatile tool which essentially can fuzzy find, meaning full text search over anything, and then can provide an output, and you can essentially manipulate and modify this output. We will see this in practice in a second, but it's quite a powerful concept. Then we have all kinds of tools that have something to do with search. I forgot to add here things like find or FD, but they would essentially be searching something either inside of the files or searching the files in the file structure themselves. Then we have obviously neovim, and if you are watching this channel, you're probably interested in neovim. So neovim can integrate wonderfully with all kinds of automations and can serve either as an output of an automation or as an input. tmux, terminal multiplexer. Now, if you're using terminal emulator that already comes with features like tmux, then of course you don't need tmux. But in my opinion, tmux lends itself really well for automation specifically. So terminals like Kitty or Western have inbuilt window tiling and other capabilities that are similar to tmux. But again, tmux in this case is much nicer for scripting. So I would highly recommend using tmux even if you're using a terminal that already has a multiplexing capability. And finally, I like using TLDR, which are community-driven man pages. This tool I integrate often with just little help snippets here and there that can be in my automation. All right, so let's start by first automation. So I'm going to show you how it works. And we're going to really briefly go through the script, all the scripts will be available in the video description in my .files, so you can grab them if you want. They work on my machine, which is Pop! OS and Linux, Alacrity, and of course neovim. So if you have a different setup, you might need to adjust the script here and there. So in this use case, we really want to search for files inside the files and then open them in neovim. So we are actually using ripgrep, not grep, and selecting this with FZF and opening in neovim. So let's first of all see how it works in action. So switching to the session with the script on the left hand side, you can see the script. We're going to go through it in a second, but let's see how it works. So if I click Alt Q, you can see that it gives me a picker. So at the bottom hand here, at the bottom half of the screen, I essentially have a script, in this case play track, and then essentially every line is picked because I haven't input yet a search query. So I can, for example, now input a search query. Let's say we want to search for the word config. So I can actually do this, and you can see we are going up. And this display themes contains the word config. So I can hit actually tab to select it. Then I can maybe select one more called swap alacrity, also tab. And you can see that those two files are selected in FZF output. So I was able to quickly select those two files. Now, when I hit enter, you can see that the new tmux pane opened with both of those files in separate tmux panes. Additionally, I also populated tmux search registry so that now you can see config here is selected, and then if there would be more words config, I would be able to iterate over those words tapping N on the keyboard. And I can work with those files from there, and that's really, really helpful. Super quickly, I can edit the files and find them, find something inside the files. So to close them, I am just using a simple key binding. I'm closing sessions, and we're back where we were before. One addition that I added to it, I can press Ctrl F, and this changes the FZF settings so that it now shows the file names instead of the file content. I can toggle between them with Ctrl G and Ctrl F. You can see this changes. So I am having two modes of selecting either files with the line numbers and the content by searching using ripgrep, or I can select a file by its name. So let's cancel that and close this for now and look at the script real quick. So the script isn't easy. This is something you need to write for a while to understand everything. I have a video about working with bash. If you would like an introduction, I'll leave a link in the video description. But otherwise, this is just a bash script. So the key point here that I want to show you, maybe let's expand a little bit, is this one. So we are using FZF here, and you can see the FZF is actually selecting this ripgrep. So we are selecting everything with ripgrep, which is grepping inside of the files with this tool. And FZF has various options that it gives me when I enter the command. And I am centering around this command all the other functionality. So here I'm exporting a variable called neovim search registry with the result of the query. You remember me typing the word config. This word will be captured in the query here, or multiple words. And then when I open neovim, I have an auto command that essentially checks whether this variable is populated, and then it replaces the search registry with it. So this script, again, is not easy. It's not super complicated, but there's quite some programming involved here. But I feel that having this capability to do it and being able to create such automations and integrations is extremely useful. I use this all the time. This is essentially, I think, the most used script that I have. Maybe not the most, that's probably second most. But I hope you can see the benefit of using this approach. What I showed you is opening 2 files. I could open up to 4 files and then split them equally tmux, neovim, fzf, and ripgrep, all those tools working together and automating a very important part of my daily workflow. All right, let's go back and check another use case. Use case number 2 is very similar, but it opens Git files, also with FZF. So you kind of see the repeating theme here. Now I am going to show you how you can make sense out of your Git files. And by the way, this automation is done by me, but there are ready automations like FZF minus Git that is much better and is doing way more. If you want to check it out, I will also leave a link in the video description. But let's see how it works. So here I have right to right session. So here we have my repository, and if I would load all the files, well, I might have changed something lately, maybe commit a change to a file or a script, and I would like to be able to see it so that I can quickly open it. So another shortcut I have is Control O, and you can see that here I am actually having a list that is very similar that you've seen earlier, but this list actually sorts the files in the order I have changed them in my repository. So the files that I changed most recently are at the very top, and then it kind of goes to the bottom. So now I know that I actually changed the grep and open, the script that you've seen just a moment ago. I changed it just a moment ago, and then auto commands, it's also something I changed. So very, very handy way to get multiple files. And now if I select more than one file, then it will open it in this little split here. This split doesn't use tmux like I showed you earlier, just uses the local current tmux window rather than opening a new one. So those automations are really interesting if you work with Git repositories and you don't want to like check or remember which files you've edited lately. You can have this script and do this real quick. And the idea here is very, very similar. Open file Git, you can essentially see very simple function. This is a little simpler than the grep, but the concept is very, very similar. I am essentially relying on the grep. Here is the kind of the key of it, and then I'm making sure that I only select files that are sort the files that are changed recently. So a third very similar example also would be just opening a file. This is the simplest script. I also use it quite often. So here, instead of doing Control O, which opens this sorted Git changes, I can do just Control F, which simply opens the files sorted alphabetically. And then I can just have this if this isn't a Git repository, or I can just quickly open a file. The reason why this script is useful is if you want to open a file, let's say in neovim, then you would probably do ls, and then you would have to somehow find the file you want and do vim __ in my case, tab, and kind of go through the list. So instead of doing that, I have this all under Control F, and I can start typing a name, let's say grep, and I can open the file here like this. So much easier and quicker than starting the file opening operation from typing vim or neovim. Something different that I also use often is setting very simple reminders. This reminder is for me to pop up essentially on my terminal, on my computer. Let's see if we set up a very quick reminder, we should be able to see how it works. So again, this is the reminder script. It wraps command called AT, which is a command, so tldr AT. You can see this command executes once at a later time. And this essentially wraps this command and gives me a little bit more flexible reminder. So I can do something like remind, upload this video. And if I do 1 minute, it tells me that the command will be executed essentially in 1 minute, so 1425 in my case. And what it should do, it should actually display on the screen a quick reminder using a tool called Zenity. So you can see I'm mentioning a lot of tools. Some of them you might not be familiar with. This comes with experience, of course, but the whole point of automating and wrapping, integrating all those tools with an automation is, I believe, a superpower of systems like Linux. You can, of course, do this on Windows as well, with Windows Subsystem for Linux, or you can do this also on Mac. And we can see, I hope you can see this little window. I can either remind me later, which is defaults to 5 minutes later, or I can acknowledge it, and then the ATQ will be deleted. So all kinds of things you can do depending on your needs, and you can easily get those types of automations. Finally, Sessionizer. This is the script I'm using the most. I call it Sessionizer, but what it does essentially, it provides a way of interacting with tmux sessions and managing tmux sessions. So you've seen me using various tmux sessions to demonstrate all the scripts and capabilities, but how can we do this better? So before I show you my script, I want to call your attention to this repository here, which already created this functionality as a tmux plugin. I still use my script because it does things a little bit differently, and I have some more automation. But if you just want to grab this plugin, I would probably suggest to rather use a tmux plugin, which has already a small community behind it, and it's definitely better tested than my script. But the functionality is really, really similar. So let's check it out. So here is the script. It's, again, not beautiful, but what it does, if I hit Alt-X, you can see that it opens a little FZF window. All of those windows are FZF, or FZF tmux in my case. And you can see those sessions at the very bottom. Those are actual sessions that we have now created. So Commandline Automation, this is the session that I have slides on, my .files. Notice that it has also a branch appended to it, and all the other sessions. But what I can also do is I can create a new session. Let's say I want to do a session from the folder videos. This quickly opens a session, and as you can see, it's in the videos folder. So now when I want to close this session, let's say I can do, again, Alt-E for end, and it shows me all the sessions that are currently active and running, and I can just simply click enter, and this session will be closed. If I want to swap to a different session, Ctrl-T, and let's say we want to go back to presentation, which will be Command-Line Automation. Notice that the stars here indicate which sessions are active and which sessions I can swap to. So we are back at the presentation. So it's really quick. If you're using tmux, I highly encourage you to use tmux. I can also link a video in the video description. I also created a video about tmux, but in general, a lot of my automation revolves around using tmux sessions, panes, or windows to achieve some additional automation. So at the end, I want to give you a few tips on how to organize your scripts if you want to create your own .files or simply just your scripts folder, to make your scripts easier to manage and more accessible. The first thing I want to say is having a good naming convention helps, because in your system there will be a lot of other scripts. My naming convention is prepending 2 underscores in front of all my scripts, and that's how I can recognize that those are my scripts, and when I list them or search for them, it's easier for me to know that, okay, this is probably my script, and they kind of stand out from all the noise. If you have similar functionality, I highly encourage you to use functions in Bash and group this functionality using functions. A good example of a script that I didn't show you, but we can show you real quick now. So we can say this GH-CLI. So it's essentially a script that wraps GH-CLI utility, so GitHub CLI. As you can see, it exposes various functions, and when I source this script from my Z shell, I have all those functions available. So they have the same name, starting by GH, and then I can list my issues, PRs, and do all kinds of stuff through API and integrate it with my terminal workflow. So definitely having separate functions is easier to test, more modular. That's not always needed. Sometimes scripts are simple enough that you can just create one file per script, but this is a good way of building a modular scripts. Key bindings in Z shell. So this is, you've seen me, you didn't see it, but I told you that I'm using various key bindings like Alt-Q, Control-F, Control-O, and so on. The way to put these key bindings in Z shell is actually pretty easy. So I'm going to use an alias here for editing my Z shell. And you can see at the very bottom, let me just scroll real quick here. So at the very bottom here, I have those functions. For example, open file git staged or open file. You can see I'm binding this key, in this case to Alt-O. The caret symbol and the bracket symbol here represents the Alt-O. In this case, it's Control-Alt-O actually. And then I am binding this in the Z shell line editor into this function. So using bind key and this, it's really easy, and you can create your own bindings that Z shell would work with and execute your scripts. Finally, if you're using something really often, but not as often to need a dedicated binding, aliases are definitely a great idea, and I have also a bunch of those. I'm trying to make aliases more memorable by just either making them a little bit funny or kind of trying to come up with a word that I would otherwise come up with. Not always easy. Aliases are very personal, and definitely you have your own ideas how to create them. So that's it for today. This was a quick overview of various automation and integration ideas. I didn't go in depth into any of the scripts. Again, I'll leave a link in the video description. You will be able to see all of them, go through them, maybe improve it. I would love a PR with some improvements, or you can just simply grab it and adopt to your workflow. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below whether there are some tools or techniques or tricks that you've learned, or maybe there's something that I didn't talk about and you would like to share. That would be also great. And otherwise, thanks, and see you in next video.